Hey everyone, welcome to your favorite Tuesday show, weekly Alicization Q&A hashtag Ask Gamerturk. Today is yet another Tuesday, as I said, just trust me when I say it's a Tuesday, and we'll just jump into the questions. Now we have normal questions, opinion questions, and spoiler questions. Actually we have just one opinion and one spoiler question, which will be at the end. But yeah, without speaking too much, let's start with our questions. So first off, a lot of you have been asking about why Cardinal had to, outright give up when she was about to fight Quinella, etc. The thing is, she literally had no chance. I hinted at this in my explained video, but some of you wanted a more clear explanation. The plan Cardinal had was to fight back, but the moment Sword Golem was revealed to be made out of humans, she simply couldn't attack the Sword Golem at all, so the only objective was Quinella. If she were to attack Quinella, first off, Sword Golem would either intervene in that fight or go for Kirito, Eugeo and Alice. And the thing is, Cardinal cannot really take Quinella on a one-on-one the same way Quinella can't really take Cardinal on a one-on-one. It becomes more of a gamble, and that's the best case scenario if the Sword Golem goes for the others. If the Sword Golem goes for Cardinal, Cardinal just outright loses in that case, which is obviously not the optimal result. Now the reason Quinella gives up is so that the other three can be returned to home safe and sound and maybe formulate a backup plan in the time they had. It's literally her just buying time for the trio, and luckily Eugeo actually comes up with a plan thanks to Zuberg's memory being on the ceiling and actually contacting him. Otherwise they would simply be returned to Underworld and try to formulate another, course of attack or something to actually get back at Quinella. Cardinal in that case has no other option than buying some sort of time for the trio to come up with another plan. So that's the reason she just outright gives up to ensure the safety of the trio. With that cleared, we can actually begin with the individual questions. First up, this is a question regarding episode 22, which I forgot to ask previous week. After Alice and Kirito almost got killed by the Sword Golem, Cardinal saved the day by healing them both after Eugeo could summon her there. When Cardinal healed Alice, why didn't she heal her eye at the same time? Is it healed but couldn't be noticed due to the eye patch? No, the eye is not back, and the key detail is the healing sacred arts and regenerating organs have different sacred arts. The healing sacred arts seals your wounds, restores your HP. Regenerating limbs or organs regenerate limbs and organs. That's an entirely separate art. And if you actually go back to the episode where Kirito carried Alice up to the tower, he actually does mention that he has already healed the wound, sealed the wound entirely, but did not have enough knowledge or special resources to bring back the eye. That was the exact point. It's a separate sacred arts that requires separate kind of resources, and Cardinal, when healing Alice and Kirito, literally just used the healing sacred arts, not the regeneration sacred arts. Next question, why did the Blue Rose Sword freeze Eugeo when he was cut? Because, if you get cut in half, you're kinda bleeding quite severely. As I mentioned during the episode explained, the freezing part was not in the books, but actually works better in that context for the anime. But yeah, the second question, why the ice red instead of blue? Well, that's because the ice comes from the bottom where there is blood, and now there is blood in the ice, so the ice is now in the color of the blood is red. There you go. Please explain about how Eugeo is able to change into a sword, fusing with the Blue Rose Sword and Alice Zuberg's memory. Why did it need to fuse with Alice Zuberg's memory? First off, Eugeo, technically speaking, fuses with the sword, not with Alice's memory fragment. Alice's memory fragment is necessary in that equation because to unleash the release recollection, the memory release of a weapon, you need a floodlight that is controlling the release recollection, and that floodlight must have a bond with the memories of the sword. Like when you look at the other knights, something like The black one, the Osmanthus blade, they are told to be compatible with Kirito and Alice respectively. In the case of Eugeo sword, the compatibility just comes from the bond between Alice Zuberg and Eugeo, who is now part of the sword. So Alice Zuberg's memory was necessary to actually make that construct work. I remember in the light novels Alice's sword being called the Osmanthus blade, but in media and games it's called the Fragment olive sword. Why is this? That's just a very minor, translation difference. The Japanese name of the sword is Kinmokusei no Ken, which can be translated either as the Osmanthus sword or the Fragrant olive sword. Sword blade doesn't matter in that case. The translation for Kinmokusei can either be Fragrant olive or Osmanthus. I'll just link the Eugeo article for the kanji and you can check for yourselves. Both translations are perfectly valid. The fan translations used Fragrant olive, the games used Fragrant olive, Yan Press, the official English translation, uses Osmanthus blade. So that's pretty much it. There is no real, something to it. It's just a different translation of the same thing. Even before Cardinal's death, Quinella breaks her word. The thing is, she does not, and I'll continue the question. Did Cardinal know that the oath would be broken even when sworn on Quinella's floodlight? Also, if Quinella is forbidden from killing other humans, why was she able to kill Cardinal, Eugeo and almost Kirito by herself? The first part is the reason why she was able to kill Cardinal is because both Cardinal and Quinella do not see each other as humans in that case, because they have been fused with Cardinal, the Cardinal system I mean, with Quinella following the prime directive of the Cardinal system, which is to keep the world balanced and alive, while Cardinal is fused with the sub directive, which is more of a control check of what is happening within the system and terminate errors where they occur. I explained this more deeply in my episode 13 Explained, so the question about Quinella and Cardinal, I refer you to that video. As for how she was able to assault Eugeo and Kirito and Alice, the thing is, their deal was if Cardinal was to, surrender completely, she would let the trio go. But the fact of the matter is, Cardinal did not really stay by her side of the deal. She effectively fused Eugeo with the sword, effectively going against Quinella, and at that point there was absolutely no reason for Quinella to not attack Eugeo or Kirito, because simply put, Cardinal did not stick by her side of the deal. I'm guessing that the special resources when the address was disconnected for the rest of the Underworld were wearing thin due to the high level of sacred arts and release collections that happened in the past few episodes. Can you remind me if that's true and if that plays a part in the defeat of Quinella? I actually answered you as a reply as well, but yeah, glad to see some fellow watcher there actually following the background information nicely. Yes, the special resources are quite scarce at that moment because there has been so much magic going on around. Despite the fact that Quinella is a very high level sacred arts user, she can be very efficient, there's still a lacking amount of special resources around the room, as well as other kinds of, physical resources, which I believe the next question, yes, can Quinella regenerate her arm? Technically she can if there is enough special resources around. We don't know really, but there has to be very little at this point. And another question that followed this, I think I forgot to screenshot it. I remember reading it and actually wanting to respond it, but the other question was why she used her arm to turn into a sword. So all three questions actually relate to each other in this case. There is not enough amount of special resources most probably, and there aren't enough physical resources to actually turn into swords, There is absolutely nothing in the room left in full durability that Quinella can just take and turn into a sword. The only thing she has is her arm lying on the ground, which has a very high priority rating because she has one of the highest stats, if not the highest stat in the world. So she just takes her arm and turns that into a sword to have an actual proper divine level weapon that she can use in that case. Hopefully that answers the three questions. If you want a more specific answer, you can just elaborate on the question down in the comments. I'll be there. Ooh, triple question there. Can a sword golem be made of entities that aren't humans but still possess a floodlight like the goblins, for example? That depends on if the entity has a floodlight or not. You can certainly turn an object, I mean many of the divine weapons are actually objects. you can turn an object into a sword, but it won't have a floodlight because the object itself does not have a floodlight. If you turn something like the goblins into a sword, per your example, yes, it will have a floodlight. Even after you explained in the video, I'm still confused, so I'll ask for more of a kindergarten level explanation. Why did the sword golem need to be made from people close to the integrity knights? If Quinella tried to make it from random people, what would happen? You can create the sword golem or individual swords from other people. The thing is, for release recollection to work, there needs to be a bond between the user and the subject of the release recollection. That's why the sword golem was made from the people close to the integrity knights, because the memory of the integrity knight would have a close bond with the sword golem itself to actually unleash the memory release. That was the key reason there. And 3, why didn't the golem turn into human corpses after Eugeo broke him? Now, there isn't much information about that, but chances are Cardinal only used more of a continuous spell, let's say. So after her death, the spell slowly faded away. A similar thing can be seen in future episodes that I cannot talk about, so I'm just gonna cut it short here. But chances are Quinella only used a more fixated sacred arts that is not a continuous thing, that does not require her to be, you know, alive, etc. And that's why the sword golem does not revert back to its original form. Did Eugeo accidentally kill the souls that were in the sword golem or just harm them? I was confused because they were cracked. They were definitely hurt, but they were not broken, I would say. You know, Eugeo just mainly focused on the piety module that controlled the entire golem, so chances are the swords and the floodlights there are more or less fine. Can Alice use advanced sacred arts to help heal Eugeo? She can, technically she can, but it would require, you know, a very complex art in a very short amount of time, because Eugeo, you know, he's cut in half. That's a lot of blood loss to deal with, as well as we don't know how much spatial resources are around. Technically, yes, she can. Second question, is there an actual system console for Kirito to log out? If so, will he be able to log himself out with no trouble, or did Wrath disable the function so Kirito can't just leave during his recovery IRL? I can't talk too much, you know, about the details of if he's able to log out or not, if Wrath did something specific or not, but the system console exists, and that's why they are in the top floor right now. Third question, how long does Kirito need to be in STL? Actually, I think, if I remember correctly, I did not double check this, Asuna, I believe, was to leave at the end of the weekend, and before she left, Kazuto would actually be able to heal enough to wake up and talk to Asuna. As for the, you also mentioned the 150 years of cap for human memory, that's a theory based on what Higa Takeru assumes among other research. There is not concrete evidence. The specific light cube devices are following that scheme, so there is definitely a limit on the light cube devices, but we don't know exactly if the same applies to the real human brain or not. As I said, it's just a theory that has not been confirmed. But that brings us to the opinion question. Are there any points in the Alicization story itself that you didn't like, such as Ricky using sexual assault again or poorly explained exposition? I actually love volumes 9 to 14 quite a lot. There were barely points that I felt bored or when the exposition was too heavy. I actually enjoyed the exposition quite a lot. Like, people hate episode 12 and episode 13, but I loved the descriptions back in the novels when those episodes' content was in the books. It was really interesting. It was really, you know, elaborating on the world, how things came to be, etc. I really enjoy exposition. What I didn't like, however, there are bits that I did not like, but that's volume 15 content. It's still a while to go. It's gonna be after the mid-season break, and it mainly relates to how the world functions. There were things that were established quite solidly, and I like when things are established solidly with clear-cut rules, with more grounded things. Volume 15 changes some of those concepts to be much more free, without limits. I don't know how to put it. It's just, it becomes a vague manifestation of what it was, and I really did not enjoy that because it felt like, you know, plot needs this to happen kind of situation. It wasn't like that back in volume 9 to volume 14. With volume 15, that's exactly how it started to feel like, and I really did not like that. So I'm not very hopeful about the future volumes either, but yeah, we'll see when Yen Press releases volume 16. But if you don't want any spoilers, this is your time to leave. This is your spoiler warning, as we are approaching the final question, which is volume 15 spoilers. This has been your warning. If you're leaving now, please don't forget to click the like before you leave. It really helps. And if you have other questions, just ask me in the comments. If it's a spoiler question, don't forget the spoiler tags. But that should have been enough time to actually leave if you don't want spoilers. So the question: based on the state of Kirito in the upcoming episodes and cover of volume 15, will the main perspective be Alice now? Will we be focused on her inner thoughts and her be the character we follow per se? Now volume 15, yes, Kirito is no longer the character we are following. The book switched to the Underworld story switches to the perspective of Alice, of course, so we get to see how Alice feels about this paradigm shift in the world, with the truth being revealed to her, as well as Berkuli, not the entire Knights, but she's like having all these dilemmas between going one direction or the other. She's trying to, you know, get that spark in Kirito's eyes back because he's completely lost at that point. But the thing is, volume 15 actually goes more in depth to the ocean turtle bits of the story, mainly Asuna, Higa, Kiku, etc., following from Asuna's perspective, of course. And we get to have the other perspective, which is gonna be the main antagonist of Alicization's second half. You have seen him in the anime. I am not even sure why I'm still being vague about this in the spoiler section. We're gonna have to get to learn Subtilizer that we have seen back in the first episode, as well as spend more time with Po, the Laughing Coffin leader, etc. So yeah, we're gonna have 3 different main perspectives in volume 15 content. That's gonna be Alice with an Underworld, and in Ocean Turtle we're gonna have the good guys from Asuna's perspective, and we're gonna have the bad guys from Subtilizer's perspective, as well as within Underworld we're gonna have some perspectives from the Dark Territory as well, but they will be switching in between quite quickly, so I can't say them to I can't go out and say they are main perspectives. We're gonna see some other perspectives as well, but they won't be long lasting. But I believe this is the last question. Yes, let's see how much this will take to edit. Oh my god, I'm so short on time between university, Destiny, and YouTube stuff. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the answers. I actually did receive a huge amount of questions this week, but I had to eliminate some of them. What am I even trying to say? I'm done. Hope you enjoyed this weekly Q&A. Hope it answered some of your questions. If you have more questions, you can ask them in the comments. But that's it. I'm gonna see you soon with the mid-season finale explained. Episode 24, My Hero, is gonna be live tomorrow. And yeah, my explained episode will follow shortly. Hopefully not gonna be too late, but we're gonna have to wait and see. Until then, stay cool.